Enrique Silva is Assistant Professor of City Planning and Urban Affairs at BU's Metropolitan College. He spent a good chunk of the last year in Port-au-Prince. And he'll give us a macro governance view on planning and why Haiti is such a hostile environment for planning to take place in. He'll also talk about engaging public attention on approaches that could change the underlying conditions that triggered Haiti's calamity to start with.
Thank you. While this is getting set up, I want to thank the School of Public Health and the School of Communication for, one, creating this forum, and two, for actually extending an invitation for me to participate in really showing the spirit of kind of a 1BU, a collegiality among the different divisions within the university to come and talk about something that is so relevant and the passion of so many of us within the university. I've been here since the start of the session, and I think I've rewritten my presentation 5-6 times. I'm going to pull a Renee Magritte on you. This is not my presentation. The new title really should be Dealing with Complexity, an Exercise in Introspection. As I was thinking about, a lot of the things I was going to talk about have been said already throughout the day, and I'm just going to reinforce some of them. But really, what I want to talk about is two kind of propositions. The first one is that if really we're interested in disasters because we want to mitigate them or reduce their impact or the vulnerability of people in disasters, we really need to probe how it is that we understand what a disaster is. And I think this is where I build off of what my colleague Dr. Oyongo was talking about. What is a disaster? And if we understand disasters as a complex humanitarian construction, or really it's an event about human vulnerability, we need to really look at how those vulnerabilities are constructed and what populations are vulnerable and why because of a particular natural event. Which means that we need to think about disasters as built over time, constructed by multiple actors, agents, as well as built in different locations at different scales. The second proposition, and this is relevant for planners because what Port-au-Prince shows is was obviously a massive failure of planning or an absence of planning. The second proposition is that if we want to keep the story of disasters alive, if we want to keep Haiti on the map, because we're concerned about the vulnerability and everything that we've seen here today, I don't know if it would be arrogant of me to propose, but I would propose that we actually follow the story of how the city and the country is being rebuilt. And that if we follow the story and the daily battles that are going on in the ministries, in the streets, among planners, among NGOs, over what decisions to make or how to rebuild, reconstruct, even where the debris is going to go, then we're going to see what has and hasn't changed since the disaster. And I say this in part as a planner because I'm going to move on to a couple of so as you can tell, this is not, I'm doing a completely different presentation. If you understand, if you ask what was the earthquake, what was the disaster in Haiti, it was primarily an urban disaster. The earthquake destroyed, not to repeat it, it literally destroyed the capital, Port-au-Prince. And it exposed the vulnerability of the majority of the people in that city, almost across classes, across districts in the city. Then the question is, if the city was so vulnerable to disaster, how was it built? How did it get to be what it was, and how did it actually, why were the majority of the houses built the way they were built, with the material and so forth? Then you ask, as a planner, you ask the question, so what's the history of the city? How did it get there? And if you go to Haiti, and my quick lesson into Haiti is that the first thing you realize is that it's a place where, in a sense, planning doesn't exist, in part because there is no really central authority. When we talk about Haiti, we're talking about a hyper-fragmented institution, a place, politically fragmented place, institutionally, politically, and so forth, where there are multiple centers of decision-making, whether it's NGOs, whether it's the United States, the international financial institutions, and even their own state. So as a planner, we have to have a place where someone's making decisions about how we're going to regulate land and who's going to live where, or how we are even going to how the market for land is operated, then we need to figure out where those decisions are being made. And in Haiti, it's really difficult. Those decisions are fragmented across the space, and so there's never really been a central place to deliberate and decide those types of policies. And I think what you get over time is the city that was flattened by a 7.0 earthquake. The other thing as a planner in terms of introspection is the question of, well, is planning really relevant? And the heartbreaking thing as a planner working in Haiti for the past year and a half or so is that it's really, really relevant. Everyone's talking about it. And the week I was there, the week after the earthquake, it was on everyone's mind. Everyone wanted to talk about it. Aside, this is in the context of people kind of literally ministers digging out their family from their homes. How can we plan in order to prevent this from happening again? So it was extremely relevant. But as you continue to work on plans, you realize that the act of planning, the need to regulate land, was an idea that was anathema to many of the people that wanted to plan, ideologically, institutionally, and so forth. So, and this is from the state on down, from even the international financial institutions that have really a kind of a push that really undermines the need to create institutions that would regulate land in a way that would prevent the kind of disaster that happened. Those are the big challenges. And I've been working on the last year with Haitian planners. I went to Haiti because I was asked to go. I didn't go out of my own volition, and I was asked to help Haitians, advise them to figure out how to deal with and how to make planning relevant in their context. And I don't have time for this, but I mean, and maybe in the question and answer sections, I can talk about multiple moments of planning where you see Haitians themselves dealing with this question about what would it mean to have an authority that regulates land, and then also looking at the powers and in the global networks that are conspiring against this push to regulate land. And then part of this, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that, and this is the introspection, is that as a U.S. trained planner, and as an academic in the U.S., this really, Haiti for me has been a moment to really reflect on the crisis of planning here in the United States. There are plenty of planners going down to Haiti, and we go there with a long list of things that they should be doing, or even a list of things that we will repeat that they said they did wrong. You didn't, the building code, this and this and this and so forth. And this is what they should do. You should, so on and so forth. And we tend to forget that planning in the United States took years to build as an institution, as a practice, and it's even problematic to this day. We don't regulate land very well. I mean, I think the contrast would be Japan and the United States. If something were to happen, how much is the United States or states within the United States willing to intervene in property rights and land use controls to build the resilience of cities and towns to minimize or mitigate the impact of something, the equivalent of the Japanese earthquake and tsunami. So as a discipline, we really need to remember what our history is. We need to remember what planning actually is and why it would be difficult to import it. And it's difficult to import because it's actually difficult to practice at home. And I'll end there.